Hey guys, welcome back to ProgramHub, and today in this episode we're going to talk about web development. So there has been a question received to us and that asked us, as a beginner and I want to be a freelancer, what is the best thing to learn? Web development, Android, iOS apps, machine learning, AI. My biggest concern about learning programming is to start with something wrong. For example, there are a number of different services that can build you a good website. Does that mean in few years we may not need a web developer? So that's the question. So firstly, over here we have got a community user who wants to be a freelancer and is asking for the best thing to learn, whether he should go along with web development, Android, iOS, machine learning, AI, or whatsoever it might be. And the next concern is that right now, if he starts to learn, he shouldn't start with something wrong. So let me get in the context completely. So the first thing, if you want to learn something, if you are eager enough to learn programming, so whether you should be starting with web development, machine learning, AI, iOS development, or Android, what should be the choice and what would I recommend to you? So guys, before my recommendation, one thing that's really necessary is to understand your interest. What are you interested into? If you're interested into building applications for web, or if you're interested into building applications for mobile platforms, so what platform are you actually interested into? Or if you're interested into some automation, like for example it can be machine learning or some data science, so what are you actually interested into? So understanding your interest will help you more to define what should you learn, because I can just go on to recommend the things, but it will be of no use if you're not interested into it. So first thing that I would recommend to you is to go ahead, try to search your interest so that you can learn more better and you have the interest even when the most difficult parts of programming arise. And now let's get to my recommendation. What would I recommend? So guys, if I just consider my experience, the way I learned programming, so I would definitely recommend you to start with web development, because the reason over here for learning web development would be a clear reason is that it's really simple. So really simple to begin. So just by writing some few lines of code, 2 to 3 lines of code, you can see something happening, and that gives you a motivation that yes, something is happening into programming. And that's the reason why I would recommend to you is to go along with web development, and it's really easy to learn, as well as you don't need an expensive machine or a very much highly configured laptop or a PC for doing web development. Even a basic machine will do much more things into a better way. So that's the reason why I would recommend you web development. Then moving ahead to web development, I can recommend you to go along learning some general programming languages. It can be Java, C, C++, or else you can start learning mobile application development either. So now it's completely your choice where do you want to go, but web development might be my choice if you want to learn something as a beginner for programming. Let's go more ahead. Now, the problem over here is that the reason why he's trying to ask is the question that he shouldn't start something wrong, because nowadays that way number of different services that can be utilized to build websites or web applications really easily. Just like we have got Webflow, we have got WordPress, we have got Shopify. So there are a number of services right now available. So what should he learn? Because if he goes around learning web development into a few years of time, maybe there would be a time into the near future when web developers will never be asked for a job. So what should he do? So guys, let me bring it to the context and my clarity of what I personally think about it. So if you're trying to learn web development, and if you're a web developer, and let's fast forward the time 10 years ahead, so there's never gonna be a time in the future when web developers will not be required. So there's never gonna be a time as such, because what I have seen in my experience when I started to learn web development, at that very moment of time, we have got some tools that were WordPress, Joomla, then Drupal, Magento. So there were a huge number of tools. And then I thought that into a few years of time, the time will move very fast and web developers won't be required. But yes, now it's 10 years ahead and still we require web developers. The reason for that is manual work and customization. So for everything that can be done using automation systems, like for example, if you're using WordPress to build an e-commerce website, it's really easy to build an e-commerce website using WordPress. But to customize that, but to make that look exactly what we need and how we need it to function, we require some parts of programming. And there comes the role of a web developer. So if you're a web developer, so there would never be a time that you won't be required. You will be required for certain tasks to be done. So that's the reason why I recommend to you is if you want to be a web developer, be a web developer. Don't worry about it that it won't be required in the near future of time. So at least what I can expect is that for the next 20 years at least, web developers will be required. So if you just look at to any of the applications, you just take in Netflix, or even if you take Twitter, Facebook, so all the things are utilizing the web application. So web applications is one of the major criteria where everything lies. So it's never going to be dead soon until unless we don't have such a powerful programming language or something into the environment that completely replaces the web technologies and moves ahead out of that. So that's the reason why I would recommend if you want to learn web development, you can just go along with that. And guys, one thing that I would really recommend to you all is that if you've done mastery into one thing, so if you know one thing completely, like for example, if you've learned JavaScript and you know everything about it, so it would be really easy for you in the near future if just going ahead in the 10 years of time, and if you need to pivot from JavaScript to some other programming language, you can very easily pivot. So it won't require you a lot of time to pivot from one programming language to another programming language because everything remains same, only the syntaxes start to change. So that's a clear thing that would be required. And lastly, if you're a web developer, you can also create applications. Maybe you might not be knowing that, but yes, you can create mobile applications using web development technologies. So for example, if you want to use JavaScript, so you can use React Native. So React Native can be utilized for making mobile applications using web technologies. There are also some technologies like Ionic that require, or PhoneGap, that utilize the web technologies for creating applications. So we can very well create applications that are actually called as cross-platform applications. So these are nothing but web apps that are rendered into different platforms for Android, iOS, and then they are utilized as mobile applications. So we can use actually web technologies for building applications too for mobile platforms. So if you want to be a mobile developer into the later ahead of time, so you can actually utilize your skills of web development there even. So guys, this is the one thing that's really necessary to understand. So none of the skills what you learn into programming will be dead very soon, and especially if considering web development and the role of a web developer, it's never going to be dead soon until unless it's something and huge fact or something and something really great that replaces the complete timeline. So guys, this is the complete review about this topic, and if you've got any more questions, any more doubts similar to this, please leave the doubt in the comment section below. We'll be happy to reply that. And if you liked our video, please hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and meet in the next episode. Till then, goodbye.